Hey guys, this is Kevin at ChristianPhotoshops.com, and today we're going to be doing a space art tutorial on Photoshop, and this is the final image that we'll be creating. Let me go ahead and show you what we'll be doing. The first thing we're going to be doing is having a black background, and then we're going to draw some stars on top of those. Then we're going to add some more stars on top of those, and then we're going to add some nebula to the picture, some colorful space clouds. And then we're going to enhance the colors of the nebula and then enhance the glows of the stars. So this is the picture we're going to end up with, and the coolest thing about this tutorial is it's all done from scratch. The only thing you need to have in Photoshop is a standard soft round brush. Everything is done with one brush. So let's go ahead and dive in. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and make a new file. So let's go to File and New. And the dimensions we're going to do for this one is going to be 3000 for our width and 2000 for the height. Click OK. So this is our canvas we're going to be working on. Of course, a star scene is not white. We need to change that to black. So just do Control I, and that will turn that right to black. And let's go ahead and start painting some stars on this dark background. So make a new layer. I'm going to change the name to Small Stars. And we're going to get a brush. The brush you're going to use is just use a small soft brush right there. And make sure your color is white. And if you wanted to paint stars everywhere, you could just make the size really small and just click all over the place. Do thousands of clicks if you wanted to, but there's a lot faster way to do this. So here's the trick we're going to use to paint stars everywhere really fast. First of all, we need to make a custom brush. Let's go to File and New, and this time let's make a document that's 1000 by 1000. Alright, so we have our document that's 1000 by 1000. Now we're going to make this our star brush, but we're going to do this a little bit unorthodox. First of all, change your color to black. And now let's change your size up to about, we'll say about 60 pixels or so. And now, directly on the background layer, go to the bottom right corner and just click once. Make sure you're within the square. Click once, and now you have a black circle in the bottom right corner. And that's a 60 pixel star. Now let's make another dot in the top left corner, but instead of 60 pixels, let's go down to about 4 or 5 pixels and just make a really small dot right there in the corner. So we have a small dot up here and a big dot down there, and they're both on the background layer. So now this is our custom brush. Click on Edit, Define Brush Preset, and we're going to call it Stars, and click OK. Okay, you can go ahead and close this file out now. We don't need this anymore. So we're back on our star layer here, and we have our brand new brush. Make sure it's white. And this is what our brush looks like. It's just little stars going everywhere, but they're actually a little bit too big. So what we want to do is we want to make them smaller, and maybe 50 pixels or so. Let's see how that looks. Nope, that's too small. Maybe 90. I think 90, about 80. Alright, I think 80 looks good. So this is the stars right now, but they're all in a row. So there's a trick to make them going scattered everywhere. What you want to do is you want to go to your brush panel, which I have right here beside the layers. If you don't have it beside your layers panel, just go to Windows and click on Brush. Go to your Shape Dynamics. The first thing we're going to do is change our size jitter to 100%. And then go to Scattering, make sure that's clicked on, and go to 1000% for that. Then let's go to Transfer and make your opacity jitter, let's do it at about 50%. And now let's go back to the layer. So now when we paint, the stars go everywhere. We have big stars, little stars, we have bright stars, dim stars, and they're scattered everywhere. And in just a few seconds, we have a nice star field on the background. And there's no method to this that's right or wrong. Stars are very random all over the night sky, so just paint them however many you would like to paint. I think something like that looks good. And let's go ahead and make another layer on top of that one, and let's change it to medium stars. Alright, so now what we're going to do is on the layer that says medium stars, we're going to keep doing our brush, but instead of 80 pixels, let's go to like, let's say 110 pixels. And now the same thing, just paint over the canvas, and now the stars are slightly bigger, but we don't want to paint quite as many of them. Okay, that looks good. And then let's do another layer, and we'll call it large stars. So now let's change our size. Instead of 110, let's go all the way up to 200, and we won't paint many here. So just do a few kind of larger stars, and those will be a lot bigger. Alright, that looks good. So we have 3 layers with 3 sets of stars, the small, medium, large, and we can go ahead and just group those layers together. So control click all the layers and then do control G to group them, and we'll call that stars. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to create some even larger stars that are kind of closer to the camera, and they have the kind of the X shape on them. So what we're going to do to create those is we're going to make another custom brush. So go to File and New, and let's go to 1000 by 1000 again. That looks good. Instead of doing it on the background layer, let's make a new layer real fast. So to make a interesting looking star, let's just do a soft round brush and make sure it's black. Okay, and here's what we're gonna do. Let's make it 200. No, let's make it about 100 pixels. I want you to click right in the center of the picture, and then what we're going to do is click on the dot, make sure your transform controls are showing, and we're going to turn this dot into a line. So make it smaller like that, and then make it taller. Go all the way out there and all the way down here. Now one thing you want to make sure is you don't go outside of the white box. So I'm going to bring it in just a little bit like that. So we don't want to go outside the white box. And I'm going to zoom in real quick, and we're going to make it just a little bit tighter. Okay, that looks good. All right, let me zoom out. All right, so what we have is a very narrow dot right here that we stretched out to more of a line. All right, what we want to do is center this on the frame. So the way to center this is just go select all, make sure you're on the right layer, and then up here just click on your center buttons, and that will bring it right to the center. Okay, duplicate that layer. Then let's go to Edit, Transform, and then rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, perfect. So we have right now we have 2 layers, 2 lines that create an X shape. Now, on top of that, what you want to do is you have your soft round brush. We want to create a circle right in the center. So what you'll do is just make a little dot and put it right there in the very center of that X. And what I would do for this to make it work out better is change your opacity down to about, we'll say 70% or so. All right, create another dot on a new layer. We'll make this even smaller, maybe 50 pixels. And then create this one right in the center of the X again. And then change that opacity down to about 70 as well. Okay, and lastly, make a new layer. Make this one a lot bigger though. So we're going to do You can do whatever size you want to, but I think I'm going to do about 400. That looks good. Actually, I'm going to do about 450. 450. Make a black dot right in the center of that X. That looks pretty much centered right there. And then change that opacity down to about, we'll call it 20%. Oh, I'm going to do 15%. All right, 15%. Okay, so we have all of our layers. We have the two X's, and then we have the three dots. And so all those together are going to make our nice star shape. Now to make this a brush, you got to make sure all of these pictures are on the same layer. So all you want to do is just click maybe on the background layer and do flatten image, and now they're all on this layer. Go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and we're going to call this one Bright Star. Click OK. And we can go ahead and close this out. Alright, so we're back on our space picture. Let's make a new layer. Make sure our color is white. And let's find that brush we just made. Here's the brush we just made. And if you click it, that's what it looks like. So you can see the X in the star, and you can see the kind of the glowing that goes around it. Now we don't want to do quite that big. That's a really big star. So let's make them, instead of 1,000 or so, let's go down to maybe, I don't know, 300, I guess. And then just click. We're not going to draw a lot of them. Just click in a few spots around the picture. And I'll change the sizes. We'll do some like 190. Maybe some back up to 280. Just be very random with them. Don't draw a lot of them though. If you have too many of these big stars, it's going to be very distracting. So just draw them however you want to. That looks good right there. Okay, I'm going to change this layer. We're going to call this Bright Stars. And there we go. So we have our bright stars and we have our regular stars in the background. And the only difference is the bright ones have that nice X on it that look like a camera took it, and the back ones, they're really just dots. Okay, now here's the fun part. We're going to draw the nebula, which goes behind all of these stars. So what we want to do, go above your background, create a new layer. We're going to call this one Nebula Base. And on this layer, let's go ahead and with your brush tool, let's don't use the star brush. Let's go back up to our soft round brush. So now this is what we're drawing with. We got this big white brush. And let's change the color. Now, the colors can be any color you want, but for this particular picture, I'm going to do kind of a blue and pink, or a blue and purple picture. So let's pick out a nice blue color. I'm going to pick maybe this color right here. That's fine. Alright, and I'm going to change the flow down very low, maybe like 5% or so. Let's go 5%. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a very basic shape. Actually, let me show you what I'm going to do before I do it. I'm going to draw a shape that's just kind of looks like that. It's just a random shape. There's no rhyme or reason why it looks like that. It's just a random cloud nebula. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to draw it that dark. I'm going to put my flow down to about 5%. And then I'm just going to draw very lightly just a nice shape, kind of like drawing a cloud. So I'm going to draw some blue over here. And then once I start getting closer to the center of the screen, I'm going to change that blue to a little bit more purple. Kind of like that. And be sure to leave some empty spots. You don't have to do a solid color everywhere. So just kind of draw some shapes like that. And when I get closer to the right side, I'm going to go a little bit more pink. Just draw some shapes. And then when I get to the very edge, I'm going to go just a little bit pinker. So we're just drawing globs, really. That's all we're doing. And back here on the other side, I'm going to make sure this goes off frame. So we got kind of a greenish turquoise to a blue to a purple to a pink. And that's kind of what I'm going for there. All right, so there's our base. And it's actually a little bit too bright for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that opacity down to like maybe 50% or so. That was just too bright, but I could see it better. Now let's make another layer on top of that one. This one is going to be called Nebula Highlights. Now for this one, we're going to use white for the color, and we're going to paint in white the entire time. But what we're going to do is we're going to change our blending mode from normal and change it to overlay. So let's make the brush just a little bit smaller, and I still have my flow at 5%. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw some white over top of those clouds, but not everywhere, just in some random spots. And this will be the bright parts of the nebula. So just a little bit here, a little bit there. There's no wrong way to do this. There's no right way to do this. You just draw whatever you think looks right. So using the white and just drawing some nice highlights in there. And then I think that's too many highlights, so I'm just going to create a layer mask and just kind of get rid of some of those highlights. That looks fine. Alright, so here is without the highlights and with the highlights. So it's just adding a little bit more depth. Let's create a new layer on top of that one. I'm going to change the name to Nebula Shadows. And do the exact same thing. Change your blend mode from normal to overlay. But this time instead of white, we're going to do black. And now we're going to paint some shadows in here. Same thing, just wherever you think a shadow belongs in this nebula, just paint in those spots. Alright, that looks good. Alright, so here is our shadows off and on, and I'm going to get rid of a few of them because I think I overdid it on the shadows, so I'm just going to get rid of a few random shadows in here. And as you can see, we don't have a recognizable shape. It's just a blob of colors. That's really all it is. But here's our base, there's the highlights, there's the shadows. I'm going to do one other thing that we probably should have done earlier. I'm going to do Nebula Base 2, and all I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a little bit more color on the bottom with a bigger brush. So we're going underneath all of these, so I'm really just making another base. And so I'm going to draw a little bit of green right here, kind of going off the frame, and then maybe some blue here in the center, going up here off frame, and then maybe some purple up here, right in the center, and then maybe a little bit of pink here on the right side. Okay, and then I'm going to change that blend mode, the opacity, I'm going to go down to about 50% as well. So all I did was just make the base just a little bit more glowy, I guess. Okay, so there is our nebulas. So let's go ahead and group those together. We'll call this nebula. This is what we've done so far. We had a black background, we added some stars, we added some bright stars, and we added some nebula. To enhance the picture, here's what this is a little trick I've learned a long time ago, and I really like what it does to the colors. Make a new layer. We're going to call this Glow. Now, with this new layer, I want you to make a group. So just click your group button here, just a little folder icon. Put that glow in the group, and you can call the group glows if you want to. Now change the blend mode of the group, not of the layer inside the group, but of the actual group. Change that to color dodge. Okay? And now on your glow layer, we're going to paint with a white brush, just a soft white brush. Make sure your opacity, we're actually going to go lower. Let's go to like 3% because the color dodge is very strong on here. So actually, yeah, that's good. Glow layer, you have your white brush. I'm going to go down a little bit in size. We have 3%. And now we're going to paint a few more highlights. So very carefully, just pick a few spots out and just paint some highlights. There's no wrong or right spot to put the highlights. And make your brush, you can change your brush, make it smaller sometimes, and maybe make it bigger in other spots. And the longer you draw over it, that 3% keeps adding on itself, and it gets brighter and brighter. So maybe you have some hot spots of the nebula, like right there. And you can even go outside of the main part of the nebula, like way out here. Maybe there's a hot spot out here. Maybe there's a hot spot down here. So just draw these nice random shapes. And the smaller you get with your brush, the more kind of details will pop out. So just be real careful and just draw some lines and some smudges. If you want to get better at this, you can look at pictures of nebulas and kind of see how they flow and see where the bright parts are. Or, you just put random shapes everywhere, and it's probably going to work out pretty good. But so just some random highlights are going everywhere. Okay. And I'm going to, again, get rid of some of those. So I'm just going to make a mask and just kind of fine-tune those highlights I made. All right. That looks good. Alright, so that's your glow layer. This is off and on, so that's what that looks like. Let's make another layer on top of that one. Let's change our brush to black. Keep it at 3%, that's fine. Let's do overlay, and we're going to call this one, we're making more shadows, so let's just call it more shadows. Okay, so now just a few more shadows, and what that's going to do is it's going to work on those glows, and it's going to make it look really dark right beside the glows. So you can do big brushes, you can do small brushes, but it's just a nice soft round brush that we're painting at a low flow rate. Right there. Okay, and once again, I'll make another mask and just kind of fine-tune that. And you can spend a long time drawing this. For the tutorial, I'm just going to be real quick with it. But you could spend times making more highlights, like in your glows. You could zoom in on it and get real specific. With the little cloud nebulas that come out, make some highlights and get real artistic with it. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to draw a few to show you how it's done. And then you can go and play with it on your own. But this is the basic idea of how you make space art. There's a lot of methods, but this is just one quick way to do it. Okay. Alright, we're almost done. Make a new layer on top of everything. And we're going to call this one Star Glows. Alright, this one is going to be overlay, so change it from normal to overlay. Get you a soft round brush like we've done for everything here. And what you're going to do, let's go and change our flow to 100%. That's fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a glow around all of these stars. They're not all pure white, so we want to make sure there is some color in these stars. So what we're going to do, let's start over here on the green side. Let's go ahead and pick out a nice green color like this, 100%, and just paint a nice little glow around these. So I'm just using a green color here, just like that. That looks good. Now when we move closer to the blue, let's change our color more blue. So there's a blue, and then right there's a blue. And then when we go over to the purple, we'll do the same thing. So put a purple there, purple here, and there, and maybe one there. And then at the very end, we'll do a little bit more of a red or a pink, and then put it right there, there, and there. And then that's a little bit too colorful, so I'm just going to change the opacity down to about 60, well, let's go about 50%. 50% is good. Alright, very last trick to make the glows look, to pop, make them pop even more. Make a new layer. We're going to call this, I don't know what we're going to call this, bright glows. That sounds good. Bright glows. Make a group, just like we did earlier. Put the bright glows in here, and you can change your group layer to bright glows if you want. Change that group blending mode. We're going to go to color dodge, and we're going to choose white for all of these. Now do not do 100% on these. This is what happens when you do 100%. It's too bright. So when you do 100%, the brightness is just too much. But if you go down to let's say 3% again, and you just click a few times on these stars, they really pop out. And let's make it even bigger. Let's make a nice glow around these. So just click a few times until it looks right. We'll even go up a little bit higher. Let's go 5%. And don't make every star the same brightness. You know, some are going to be brighter than others. So don't make every star the same brightness, or it's just not going to look as good. But all we're doing is we're painting bright white on all of these stars with the color dodge blending mode, and it brings them out very well. And if you want to, you know, for the pink stars, you can do like a light pink here. But I wouldn't go too saturated with your color here. And then for the blue stars, maybe like a really light blue. And that should look fine. But don't go too much on your saturation. Alright, so this is what it looks like before and after. So it just adds a nice little glow on there. So that's your glow. And if you wanted to enhance that glow even more and make like a really big glow, let's do like 10% here. Change it to white, and then just, well, let's go even bigger. Let's go like 1,000. So put like 1,000 around it. Maybe not for the smaller stars, maybe do like a smaller one, but just like a huge halo going around the stars. Okay, and then bring that down just a little bit. Okay, so in our bright glows group, we have two. We have, you know, the smaller ones and then the bigger ones, and this is what it looks like without it. So that just adds a little bit of pop to it. So let's look at what we did. Here's our black layer. We added some stars. We added some bright stars. We added some colorful nebula in the background. Then we added some glows to the nebula. Then we added some shadows. Added some glows to the stars. And then added some more glows to the stars. So in just a few minutes, you're able to make a nice, pretty space scene. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you enjoyed this. Make your own. I'm curious to see what you come up with, but just have a great time doing it. Thanks, guys.